After all these years, the funniest thing to me is that you lot still think procrastination is the enemy. You still put it on some fucking pedestal, and you still pretend like it's the level 100 Dark Souls boss that you can't defeat for your life. Procrastination is bad, is the common narrative, and all of you who have this concept are always going to sign this out. You're always thinking about this battle that you literally can't defeat, because procrastination, if we actually look at it for what it is, it's a human function. It's something that was developed by evolution, not by mistake. Are you going to call hundreds of thousands of years of evolution a mistake, an error? It's a well thought out process, and it's a very, very, very useful human function that actually serves an important purpose. So instead of bashing it and looking for the newest psychology trick to beat procrastination 99% of the time, we're going to talk about something that works, which is understanding why it occurs in the first place. Now, this alone should be enough for the fucking video, but because I'm so nice, I'm going to talk about how it occurs most of the time so we can spot it, and if it does, how to stop it. Usually, it's not even going to occur if you understand how it occurs and you can spot it before it does. But even if it does, we're going to look at some examples on how to stop it. But that shouldn't be the priority, realistically. So, for all of you procrastination haters, you're going to literally have your mind blown by the end of this video. So, if we look at procrastination for what it really is, this thing was a circuit in your brain, and still is a circuit in your brain, which tells you, hey, maybe this thing that we're looking at isn't ideal for us to do, so we should neglect it. It's a mechanism which is made to essentially, if we use Socratic reasoning and ask why and why and why time and time again, the bottom line is procrastination's only purpose is to keep you alive. How? You might ask how did we come to that conclusion within that span of 5 seconds? Well, I'll give you a few examples. Back in the day, you had this wild idea of, okay, let's go hunting alone. Then you maybe got this idea, but logically you usually reason yourself out of it. And even if you didn't, you would start to procrastinate on doing that. Because your subconscious mind, which is like fucking exponentially smarter than your conscious mind, would start going like, hey, maybe we shouldn't because that would be very dangerous. And even if you consciously didn't have this idea in your mind, your subconscious had already computed it. You would already come to the conclusion, subconsciously again, that this is not a good idea. We shouldn't go hunting for a wild animal. Or an even better example would be, maybe if we showed a sign of weakness to our tribe members, that would be associated with ostracization. They would actually ostracize us from the tribe. And that would end up with us dying. Sign of weakness. Because we are meant to be providers, and we no longer can do that, we would get ostracized from the tribe, and we would become the lion's breakfast. This isn't an outlandish example, and the thing is, this circuit of your brain is the exact same nowadays. It's the exact same. And just because showing a sign of weakness is so heavily associated with potentially death, or at least very, very high levels of harm to our physical well-being, you are probably going to fail every single time you feel any form of weakness might be shown to your tribe or your community members. You're going to fail to do a thing. You're going to be held back by procrastination. And can you guess what the number one fear of people is nowadays? Public speaking. Isn't that strange? But I digress. If we look at any other example, literally, what procrastination will end up showing us is that we want to stay alive. And even something as simple as not wanting to do your homework can be traced to staying alive, because we have a tendency to invoke this thing called homeostasis, which basically says we need to keep our energy at bay, at a balance. So every single time you have this thing that it requires you to sprint, it requires you to have very big energy outbursts, such as running and hunting and stuff like this, you need to counterbalance it. And unless you have an incredibly very, very good reason to expend a lot of energy, your body is going to keep you back from it. Your body is going to hold you back. So every single time your body comes to the conclusion that the task at hand isn't worth it, whether it's expending too much energy or the return simply isn't that important, your body's going to rather vote for this, to actually reserve the energy and to lie around and to not do much, because it understands if time comes and we are in danger, predators hunting us, or we just need food, we're going to be running anyway. So if we don't have a very good reason to not to actually run, we're not going to be doing that shit. That's just not important to us. So even nowadays, let me land. Even nowadays, when you want to do your homework, because it seems too complex and your body's having this outsized feeling of a return on investment, it's saying either you need to invest too much or you're not getting enough return. Your body's going to start to think, oh, it's not that important because of da-da-da-da-da. Or your body's going to be like, wait, hold on, it's so complicated. What the fuck does homework even mean? And this brings us to the second reason why we procrastinate. The first one was fear. And the second one is actually lack of clarity. I'm just going to write clarity on the board here. But lack of clarity is a very, very common reason, probably the most common out of all of them, because you have this huge conception of, oh, do homework. But what the fuck does that even mean? Why is this 2-minute rule probably the most common advice when it comes to beating procrastination? It's because all you need to do is to simplify it. Once you're already in the thing, your body isn't going to say, oh, this is too complicated. The sun is so fucking sunny. Can you even see the board properly? I bloody hope so. Your body's going to say, wait, hold on. This task is just so huge. It's just so complex for us. Unless you actually simplify it. Because it doesn't exactly know what you want. However, if you say, open biology 2 at page 72, do tasks 173 through 177. Now this is impossible to misunderstand. The energy expansion on this isn't going to be that hard because you know exactly what to do and you know that it's not super overwhelming. However, if you give yourself a task which is huge, and especially if you haven't done it before, for example, if you tell yourself something like, go plan a ski trip. Now you might do it because you really, really want to and you have a lot of fun, so the return is outsized, but the thing itself, the investment that you're putting into it, is alien to you and it's quite hard to do that. I don't know how your friend group goes, but my friend group usually is very bad at organizing things because no one wants to fucking do it. Because we're all like, yeah, someone else will do it. You know, I don't know how to rent ski stuff. I don't know how to travel the best way. I know that other people are going to be hard to convince, da-da-da-da. And it's just this huge complex thing to the point where no one even starts doing it. We all procrastinate on doing this because it's not actually that simple. But if everyone had a guide written out and we actually had like a view in front of us which told us that, oh, listen, if you just spend 2 hours on this, it will be done. Probably all of us would do it because we all really like it, and as I said, it would be fun for us to do, so the upside is there. But the downside seems too big once you don't rationalize it, once you don't simplify it. It just seems so complex that our brain rather chooses to stick to homeostasis and actually like de-wind our behavior and to actually go into this mode of chilling, reserving energy, because that's what's logical. And the last thing would be, the last most common manifestation of procrastination, which is still, by the way, keeping you alive in one way or another, would be values. What the fuck does values mean? You might be asking. Values basically shows how you might be misaligned, and a lot of people are living misaligned, and they always think there's some third dimensional practical things that they can do to make sure they don't procrastinate, but it's actually something a lot deeper. So let me give you an example of a worker working for Nestle or any predatory company that is known for exploiting the environment, or something that they personally are not aligned with. Let's say we're a very green person, we're very environmentalistic, and we really, really pursue, we get a lot of meaning, at least from the environment and upholding stuff that is important to us, such as nature. But if we work at Nestle, and even if our livelihood depends on it, and we want to get money, so we want to work as much as possible, just because it's in very stark contrast to our soul is going to reject it. Our subconscious mind, again, just like in the previous examples, knows what we're doing. We know that these things are very important to us, yet we're acting in direct contrast to the thing. We're acting entirely out of alignment with what we actually want. So instead of having this pull towards the thing, towards working, and actually working hard and wanting to do it because we feel like we're contributing to the world, being motivated, we're going to be relying on discipline, because instead of having this arrow that is pulling us towards our goal, which is working, we're going to have the exact opposite because we don't want to do the thing. You understand this? And even though you might seem like in your job you want to grind hard and shit, why? To get the money, why? If getting the money requires you to feel bad in the first place, why would you do it? Or if you're in a relationship when you know you're not going to marry the girl, but it's kind of nice and you know the sex is okay and this and that, but you don't want to quit it just yet, you're going to struggle going on dates because your subconscious has already processed the whole way forward. It's already come to the conclusion that this isn't in alignment with your soul, because you can't picture marrying the woman. This is just another example. And a lot of times, once you Even like the thing is, you don't sit around and come to the like logical conclusion that this would be a bad thing for you, but your subconscious mind is so powerful, it's already done the computing for you. It already knows that this isn't something that you want to do, and you're going to be looking around at all of these 3D physical world examples and be like, why am I procrastinating? Am I having the wrong diet? Am I not sleeping enough? Which, you know, could be the case. I'm not going to downplay those scenarios either. But the thing is, usually this. It's usually this arrow that is pushing you in the direct opposite direction, because your soul deep down knows that this isn't the thing for you. So how can you counteract these? Well, there's a lot of things you can do. Fear, for example. The main thing you can do is understand that fear is not going to go away. Fear is a feeling. And the feeling of fear is always going to be present, and we need it to be present, because if we didn't fear certain things, we would perish. We would die much easier. If we went up to a bridge and we stood on the very, very brink of the bridge, it's quite useful to feel fear, because then we aren't as likely to fall off and we aren't as likely to die. So we don't want to get rid of fear. What we want to do is spot the fear that isn't justified, such as speaking in public, because nowadays, you know, we're not going to realistically die if we show any sign of weakness. This modern place that we live in, this modern world, isn't actually as punishing as we sometimes conceptualize of it to be. These times when we actually spot this fake fear or unjustified fear, we need to spot it, and we need to become aware that this is only present because of this unupdated or outdated, rather, circuitry that we have within us. We need to understand that this sign of fear, whether we feel nowadays because of this public speech or something, is totally unjustified. And once we notice this, we actually have the ability to invoke courage. Because again, the fear isn't going to go away. You know, you either have fear or you don't. And you don't want to get yourself into some neurologic exam to get rid of fear, because that would really not be good, because you would have a higher chance of falling prey to the fear that you should be feeling, such as going up to the edge of a bridge or something like that. We should only have this ability to invoke courage in those cases where you don't actually have real fear. You notice that the fear you're feeling is kind of fake. And if you can rationally get yourself out of it, and you can be like, wait, hold on. I shouldn't be fearing this right now, because realistically, it is what it is, you know. It isn't actually that big of a deal. Because the only reason I'm feeling fear right now is because I make this association, you know. Sign of weakness, ostracization, lion's breakfast. I'm not going to be the fucking lion's breakfast if I accidentally slip in my public speech. Yeah, sure, it's going to be a bit embarrassing, but that's the only way I'm going to get better, if I do the public speech. So if you can just make sense of your situation and actually reason yourself out of it, although a lot of people think that isn't good advice, if you can just spot these unjustified instances, you will be so much better. I have a full video on this, by the way. If you want to check it out, more power to you. It's like a 29-minute to remove your sense of fear or something like that. That's the title of it. Should be flashing up on screen right now. Click the video if you're interested in this. It's quite a complex topic, so I can't do it justice in just 5 minutes. The next topic is clarity. How do you actually get rid of clarity? Well, I already listed it up here. The 2-minute rule is very, very good. So actually putting in the work and doing 2 minutes of the thing that you should be doing is the easiest thing. And the thing is about the 2-minute rule, if you tell yourself, oh no, the assignment's 3 hours long, but I'll just do 2 minutes. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Your body's going to call your bluff, and it's going to be like, wait, why would we just do 2 minutes? Well, that doesn't make any sense. The 2-minute rule actually sits on the premise of you actually tell yourself, I'm just going to do 2 minutes and see how I feel. If I don't want to do it after 2 minutes, you can quit. Give yourself permission to quit, because if you don't, you're going to have even lower success rate. So give yourself permission to quit after 2 minutes. The whole concept of the 2-minute rule is if you get started, if you get over those initial steps, you know, that leads to that confusion, if you sit down, if you open your biology book, if you go to page 72, you will be more likely to do it, because now your brain isn't overwhelmed and doesn't see the task as complex, because now you've gotten over these initial steps. So if you use the 2-minute rule actually how it's supposed to be used, you shouldn't really be feeling any form of resistance and procrastination anymore. Because your brain now understands that, wait, either this isn't that hard, or that the returns are high enough for me to actually go into this and not get back into the state of homeostasis and lying around and doing fuck all. And the final thing is actually do a bit of soul searching. You know, if you don't actually know what's useful to you and what you're passionate about and what you really like deep in your soul, how do you expect to be aligned to it? Your soul's just screaming up that, don't do this, don't do that, etc., etc., and you're living life in this stupid way. And of course you're going to be procrastinating certain things. Of course you're going to be pushed away from certain things. But if you don't even know why, well, I mean, good luck figuring that puzzle out, right? It's like solving a puzzle but missing the pieces. So actually just looking at the wall sometimes and having your own thoughts is quite nice, because I always draw this. If this is your mind, and this tiny, tiny bit here is your conscious mind, you have to understand that all of this area on the board, is your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind has all of the things about it that make you, your memories, your feelings, your traits, your attributes, your everything that pretty much that is in your mind that isn't being held in your conscious mind right now. But the thing is, our conscious mind, instead of filling it up with stuff from here, from a subconscious, which actually makes us, we fill it up with all of this external stuff like, oh, look at the amount of goals that Ronaldo scored, or look at this new politician that's passing this law, and we're not really thinking about us. And that is what leaves us essentially so misaligned, because we're thinking about other people's shit all the time. How about you think about your shit for once? You come home and you decompress after a long day. Even after the long day, we look at Netflix and we think about a show and, oh my God, I can't believe this person said this and da-da-da-da-da. If you just looked at the wall and you just gave yourself 15 minutes to just stare out, so sit on the balcony, drink a cup of coffee, a nice cup of tea or something, and just think about your things without having to watch a YouTube video for your parasocial relationship, you would be much further ahead in this journey, because the people who don't know their values and don't know what they want in life are usually these people who are chronically online and overwhelmed all the time. And even if you know, have a small conception of what you want, these change all the time. So you can't just figure out what you want at 16 and then have that. Very, very few people stick to one thing their whole entire life. And I find that those people aren't totally authentic and honest with themselves all the time. Maybe they just get stuck at 30, they figure out they want to do something different, and then, oh, it's too late already. So be a bit more mindful of what you do, and actually spend a bit of time getting memories up from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind, because if you don't, they will come up involuntarily. And these are the kind of people who don't do any soul searching, who end up burnt out later in their career, who end up having emotional outbursts because they haven't tackled their traumas and shit like this. And I don't mean to go too deep into this, but this is very, very important if you actually want to understand your values, because you will be pushed away from doing certain things, and you will require much, much, much more discipline if you're like this Nestle worker who's working for money, because this person isn't aligned. He might not even know. I mean, obviously this is like a very stark example, but you might not even know that you're constantly fighting this pull that is pulling you away from the certain thing. And you have to invoke discipline when the normal state of the human experience is motivation. Why wouldn't you be motivated if you actually want to do the thing? So think about it.